Hey friends, do you want to supercharge your life by learning and practicing the golden principles of Marcus Aurelius as embodied in his masterpiece, Meditations? Yes? I am your friendly guide, Mr. Smart, in your journey to explore and adopt these principles and life hacks. Subscribe to me so that I can continue making animated videos especially for you. Let us start with my favorite quote from Meditations. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. This impediment can be some close friend stabbing you in the back, cutthroat competition in your industry or job market, your competitors hitting below the belt, conspiring and non-cooperative people around you, the grudge of your boss at the workplace, not so professional work associates or team members, your revolting military generals or non-cooperative rulers of neighboring countries. Everyone has a lesson to learn from this universal quote from Marcus Aurelius' masterpiece, Meditations. That's the reason many towering personalities from the corporate world and entrepreneurship to politics and sports are fond of Stoicism in general, and Marcus Aurelius' book, Meditations in particular. These wise lessons and principles of life are neither bound by time nor geography. Dear fellows, do you wonder if Meditations is a purposefully written book or something else? It is, in fact, a bedside private journal of Marcus Aurelius, who was among the most powerful men from 161 to 180 AD as the Roman emperor. These private notes were never meant to be published for fanfare or commercial interests. Thus, the insights in Meditations are the genuine and honest thoughts of one of the deepest thinkers of all time. These personal notes were only for his own guidance, clarity, and catharsis, as Marcus was writing down the Stoic principles, practices, and exercises in seclusion of his own private abode. His philosophical and moral principles were meant to guide him in ensuring his just rule, peace, and stability in large swaths of land. That's why you will find his solutions and thoughts to be very practical and refined. He used to write private notes every night before sleep, which are in fact reminders to his own self to remain humble, honest, emphatic, and resilient in face of whatever comes in his way. Matthew Arnold aptly writes in his essay published in the Victorian magazine in 1863, Marcus Aurelius is perhaps the most beautiful figure in history. He is one of those consoling and hope-inspiring marks which stand forever to remind our weak and easily discouraged race how high human goodness and perseverance have once been carried and may be carried again. Historians regard Marcus as the last of the 5 good emperors, the term first coined by Niccolò Machiavelli, who further described Marcus Aurelius as unassuming, a lover of justice, hater of cruelty, sympathetic, and kind. In spite of all the powers and privileges of his time, the Stoic Emperor Marcus Aurelius had a difficult life due to the multitude of troubles and challenges in his entire rule. But he remained steadfast and resilient, armed with his humane and wise principles of life. He is the model for everyone who faces struggle, frustrations, and crisis. It was during the military campaigns between 170 and 180 AD that he wrote extensively in his private journal to guide himself through this time of turmoil and turbulence. These writings of Marcus later became the 12 books under the title of Meditations, although the original notes had no such title. Meditations is a book of sayings consisting of a sentence or two to a long paragraph. Certain Stoic thoughts and ideas keep popping up as Marcus Aurelius faces challenges and conspiracies and constraints in the day, while in the night he engages in deep reflection and writes his personal notes before sleep. These recurring ideas and principles are what Marcus thought to be important to himself and to include in his own life. My fellows and friends, these Stoic principles have become even more relevant in the modern life. Now, let us discuss 8 Stoic principles and practices of Marcus Aurelius, extracted from the masterpiece Meditations. Number 1. Mind your own business. Shortcomings and misdeeds of others are none of our business. Don't be upset by others' evil doings. Try to correct them if possible. If they are stubborn, don't get depressed. You need to focus on your own strengths and weaknesses. That is your circle of influence. You cannot dictate or mold others. You cannot convince and influence others the way you can exercise your influence on your own self. So, what is the point of focusing on others' shortcomings, misdeeds, and weaknesses? You should rather put your efforts to make your own self better and better day by day. That is what you have control over. Marcus Aurelius writes in Meditations, "It's silly to try to escape other people's faults. They are inescapable. Just try to escape your own." Today, we live in a hyper-connected world with social media at the center. We know what our friends are doing. We know what our colleagues are doing. We know all the rights that everyone around us has done. And we know even more precisely what wrongs others have committed. We love to think about and discuss others' actions and preferences. We always have opinions, what others should do and what they should not do. We engage in gossip, chatter, and speculation. And yes, we get offended quite often over what others have said or done because we have strong opinions about what they ought to do. Believe me, these are mere distractions. It is a trap in which today's generation is caught. 2,000 years ago, Marcus knew that other people's mistakes should be left to their markers. Forget about others' doings and wrongdoings. Quite frankly, you will not find time for it once you focus on your own life and try to fix it, rather than getting worried and concerned about others. You have enough on your own plate in today's busy life. So, don't waste your time and energies on others' mistakes. You don't need to be spying on others. Simply speaking, mind your own business. 2. Two wrongs don't make a right. If someone does wrong, try to correct him if he is receptive. But if he is stubborn, don't bother about him and his wrongdoings. And even more importantly, do not violate your principles in reacting to him. In Meditations, Marcus Aurelius reminds himself on several occasions not to get upset by the misdeeds of others. He believed that people do wrong not because they are instinctively bad. In fact, they don't know the difference between good and evil. Consequently, we should forgive people even if they have harmed us. Out of this act of kindness is a favor to the whole of humanity. Marcus thinks all good and bad people to be the different parts of one human body, which are meant to cooperate and interact with each other. In fact, all Stoics believe that we all are part of one interconnected organism. When you hurt one person, you hurt the whole group, and you hurt yourself. That's why the best revenge is forgiveness. Forgive others for their faults and have your way to self-improvement. This act of kindness will give you the peace of mind needed to attain excellence in your life and work. Number 3, don't care about the opinions of others. This theme is oft repeated in Meditations. Marcus Aurelius believes that we should not make our life hostage to the opinion and approval of others. We should do things which are instinctively good and believe in our own self rather than seeking others' approval. Marcus writes, "Consider that as the heaps of sand piled on one another hide the former sands, so in life the events which go before are soon covered by those which come after." We are all mortals, but we assign undue weights to the approval of other people while selecting our career, profession, attire, lifestyle, even our life partner. We pay a king's ransom without a guarantee that we will ever be free. In the same vein, the desire for fame and praise is worthless because every famous person dies one day or the other, and those who praise the famous person posthumously will themselves die soon. Marcus writes, "When you've done well and another has benefited by it, why, like a fool, do you look for a third thing on top? Credit for a good deed or a favor in return? Even the greatest of all fames is bound to fade into oblivion. So don't put all your efforts and energies to gaining approval, fame, and praise." Number 4, embrace change. There is no need to be afraid of change. Rather, embrace it wholeheartedly. Change is a principle of nature. No invention or discovery is possible without change. The change of anything into something new is in fact the progress of the human race. Marcus Aurelius said, "Is any man afraid of change? What can take place without change? And can you be nourished unless the food undergoes a change? And can anything else that is useful be accomplished without change?" In short, change is the progress. So love it, rather than resisting it. My fellows, if you are watching this animated video till now, you have an urge to live a better life. Mr. Smart makes these animated videos to inspire you to lead a successful, peaceful, and well-balanced life. Subscribe to me before watching any further if you want more content like this. Now, let's get back to our next Stoic lesson of Marcus Aurelius. Number 5, get focused before you die. A theme closer to embracing change is to accept the reality of death and get focused to do meaningful work while you are still alive and healthy. We tend to forget the phrase memento mori, which means, remember, you will soon be dead. Marcus Aurelius remarks in Meditations, you could leave life right now, let that determine what you say and think. Don't waste your precious time watching television leisurely, or browsing the internet aimlessly, or any other form of passive entertainment. Rather, start doing passionately what you think is meaningful and worthwhile. Ask anyone what is important in his or her life. An immediate response will be family, health, career, business, or some dear hobby. Now, ask how much time you have spent with your family or exercising your body in the last 30 days. You will find an obvious mismatch between our priorities and the way we spend our time and energies. Number 6, what stands in the way becomes the way. The life of Marcus Aurelius was full of difficulties and challenges, but he braved all these upheavals with courage. In his rule of 19 years, he faced a constant warlike situation, a depleting treasury, a deadly plague, an incompetent and greedy stepbrother as co-emperor, a possible infidelity, a betrayal by his closest allies, arduous travels in his empire, and so on. In spite of these challenges, he writes, our actions may be impeded, but there can be no impeding our intentions or dispositions, because we can accommodate and adapt. The mind adapts and converts to its own purpose the obstacles to our acting. Accommodation and adaptation are the key words. Accommodate the impeding changes and adapt yourself according to these changes in the pursuit of your purpose and goals. Repeat these golden words of Marcus after me. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. It means that there will always be obstacles, problems, and setbacks in the way. Don't forget what impedes you can rather advance and empower you, depending on how you take and mold the circumstances without compromising your principles. Choose not to be harmed, and you haven't been. Life is not a bed of roses. There will be certain pains and defeats and betrayals and setbacks, but you can remain undeterred and unaffected if you choose to be. Your perception of an event is what matters. If we perceive some event as bad and troublesome, this perception will ruin our peace of mind. How much more damage, anger, and grief do than the things that cause them, Marcus says. In fact, perception is the reality. Marcus further writes in Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That's the strength with which Marcus braved all the challenges in his life. This single attribute, if internalized well, can give us enough strength, courage, fortitude, and perseverance to defeat all debilitating thoughts. Quoting Marcus Aurelius, "Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been." Number 8. Let thy deeds be few. Don't stuff your mind with unnecessary things. Don't waste your time and energies on tasks that are neither urgent nor important. Centuries ago, Marcus Aurelius knew how important it is to cut superfluous activities from his life. He writes, "This brings the contentment that comes with doing a few things and doing them well." Most of what we say and do is not necessary, and its omission would save both time and trouble. At every step, a man should ask himself, is this one of the things that are superfluous? A wise and practical man will stick to a few actions and do them really well, better than any mediocre. Here it is quite apt to quote Tony Robbins when he says, "Most people fail in life when they major in minor things." But the real challenge is that all of the minor things tend to feel major at the very time they are happening. So, how to know exactly what is major and what is minor, what is important and what is not so important, what is urgent, what is not so urgent? Mr. Smart has made a complete animated video to address these questions. This video is based on Stephen Covey's 4 quadrants of time management. You can find the link in the description and cards. These 8 Stoic rules of life have the potential to change, if not revolutionize, your life for the better. These practices are equally useful for a common person as well as the most powerful individuals of the time. Many eminent personalities from the corporate world and entrepreneurship to politics and sports have benefited from these Stoic principles and practices of Marcus Aurelius, extracted from his writings in Meditations. However, you would need to fully internalize these virtues and practice them religiously to change your life for the better. My friends, do you think that Stoic principles can make our life more intentional and successful? How challenging you have found these Stoic principles of life to practice in the age of social media. Let Mr. Smart know in the comments section. And yes, don't forget to subscribe to me if you want more content like this.